All right. You like how I just showed my basic instinct?
That was not very basic and very instinctual.
Anyway, sup, fucker?
How the hell are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Still getting down with the sickness, dude. You know.
You fucker, get up. Come on, get down with the sickness. You ever listen to those Richard Cheese songs?
Those are those ones that...
The lounge songs?
Yeah.
Those are so fucking entertaining.
Yeah.
I gotta say, my favorite is probably Wet Ass Pussy.
I haven't listened to that one, but I'm...
This wet ass pussy. It's so good. If you haven't listened to Richard Cheese's Wet Ass Pussy, go listen to that. That's a lot of fun.
One of the funnest wet ass pussies I've heard of now.
That's the only way that song is entertaining to me in any way, shape, or form.
I think you can get away with a whole lot of stuff with that, just a little...
Oh yeah, that lounge style.
Yeah.
Because some of the songs he does, they're so iconic in their own right, but when he does it, it just changes the flavor of it.
Yeah.
Like when he does Chop Suey from System of a Down. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And you're just like, oh my God.
Songs are so snappy.
Yeah, so super fun. Let's talk about telepathy.
I'm sensing something coming in. Telepathy.
Mutants.
The X-Men, dude.
Professor X.
Professor X.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. So it's come to our attention that the belief now is that people with quote-unquote extreme autism, non-speaking, non-verbal people with autism have been reading our minds.
Yeah. So the whole spurning of this was because of the telepathy tapes. I'm not even sure how I came across it, and I didn't even realize until afterward that Joe Rogan talked about it on his show, and all these people are just so enamored with it. So it was like, I didn't even know this. I just came across it on my Spotify feed, and I listened to that first episode, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I didn't even finish the first episode when I sent it to you, and I was like, you got to check this out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was hilarious that it was like a few hours later, you're like, yeah, this is super fucking cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, these, I don't know if you'd call them high functioning, but these like savant kids are these savant autistic, non-speaking or non-verbal or whichever term you want to talk about. Like they have these actual telepathic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And just like hearing the story, like that very first story in the first episode was just so interesting to me, because I think the girl was like 7 or 8 or something like that, very young.
Yeah.
And able to read her mom's thoughts. It's bananas.
It is bananas. And like you, yeah, you sent it to me, and we were kind of eating shit at work that night, and so I was like wanting to get to it, and so I was listening to it on the way home, the first episode, and each episode is like 40 minutes long maybe, and my drive is about 30 minutes. And I got home and sat in my driveway and listened to the rest of that whole episode, because I was just like, holy shit. Totally enamored by it. Like, I couldn't wait to go to sleep and wake up and so I could listen to it.
Yeah.
The next episode. I was hooked. And it is really going through, that was what, Saturday night or something that you had sent it to me.
Yeah.
And there's 9 episodes. Each one is like 9, like I said, 40 minutes or 10 episodes. And I was done with them last night, just listening to it on my drive to and from work, and then like when I get home I'd listen to it a little bit before I went to bed, and but I couldn't stop listening to it.
Yeah,
I sent it to my wife, sent it to Kara. You have to check this out, so I'm not the only one, so we can talk about this. But yeah, it's these families that have been told that their autistic child, like severely autistic child who can't speak and has difficulty with motor functions, these doctors have been telling them their whole lives that consciously their kid is not there. They're just kind of an empty shell.
Yeah.
That's what these doctors are telling these families. And then come to find out that these kids are learning how to use a plastic spelling board to spell out words, and that they're really genius, miraculously smart.
Yeah.
Beyond the like even the standard of intelligence. Like they're beyond.
Yeah, I mean, when you're listening to it, and they're doing these tests to prove telepathic ability, but they're also throwing these curveball tests of like complicated math problems. Shit that a normal person with a reasonable intelligence quotient couldn't solve off the top of their head that quickly, where it would be like 390 times 25 or whatever, and they just pop out the number. It takes them longer to point out the number than it does for them to calculate the problem.
Right.
Versus you or I, we could just say, oh, it's 12,300 or whatever, but it would take us a long time to long form it out, but they just do it in their head like that.
Right.
And one of the things that I found so interesting that they talked about, because the telepathy part, they say it's only in the show, they constantly say it's only the tip of the iceberg. To me, it is the least interesting thing about these kids, because they talk about this kind of almost wellspring of knowledge that they can just tap into at any time. It's almost like downloading information from the cloud for them, where there's this vast array of just knowledge that they could just reach out and grab a piece, where they know history that they could not possibly know, or they can solve these math problems, or they have more answers to questions that we don't have answers to, just by being,
Right. To me, the whole thing, listening to the whole thing, like I got this conception in my head that the whole thing is like their consciousness is just so large that it can't be contained by their body. And so their consciousness kind of resides up above their body, so they're not really, and they talk about this, the kids saying that they weren't even aware that they had a body. A lot of them, so they didn't know how to control their hands or their feet or their mouth to speak. So their consciousness was just so outside of the body that it was connected to everything else, that it's so connected to everything else. And this, like we talked about it before in doing like paranormal stuff, and that your consciousness, your brain is kind of like a radio that sends and receives signals. But just being outside of that physical boundary of your body, they're just connecting to everything all the time. And even so, it could explain why they're so overstimulated by loud noises or like touch, or a lot of them talk about how they didn't know where their hands are at, and so they flap their hands around so they know where their hands, where their boundaries are, physical boundaries as their body.
It's almost like their consciousness is so ethereal that having to be in their body seems foreign to them in a way, that not just occupying an actual physical space, even though their consciousness is everywhere. And even being able to communicate with each other telepathically over great distances shows that them being confined into, your meat spacesuit is difficult for them, and that's why they can't control their hands or their body, and they can't move accordingly, And then when they are actually in their body, it's exhausting to them because they have to exert so much of their energy to move your meat spacesuit that they're not used to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're being limited to a corporeal form is a challenge that they don't know how to do.
Yeah.
Versus a person like you or I, it's normal. We don't know anything else, And then when we do experience something other than that, when you're on psychedelics or when you've been drinking or whatever, and you're kind of detached in a way, but your mental state is different, that's foreign to us. But that's their norm, almost.
Yeah. And we've talked about it before, especially with the use of psychedelics, like being that, like, those psychedelics drop those inhibitors, drop the, make the boundaries looser so that your consciousness can connect to, things that are around you. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to do it because we're not tapped in.
Yeah.
So could it be possible that these kids are just tapped in a way that, like, it's more normal than actually speaking? And they talk about that, like, some of the spellers, as they're called, these kids who are people that can't communicate verbally. Some of them choose not to use words.
Mm-hmm.
There's one guy specifically that was a speaker, learned how to talk, and then slowly just stopped talking because he thought it was hindering. So that, words are so limited.
Yeah.
That he can express himself the way that he wants to telepathically as opposed to words. And they describe it in the show and in some of the interviews that I've seen with the documentary lady who's putting the podcast out, where it's like, if I say the word Christmas, you know what I'm talking about, Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was able to send telepathically Christmas to you, you would get the smells, the flavors, the lights, the
Mm-hmm.
the love, the family. You would get all of that in all the emotion that comes with it. So you know what I was talking about completely. So they talk about, the nonverbal people not wanting to use language and talking about people who speak are hindered by language and by having to use words. I thought was super interesting.
One of the most interesting things on that show was them when they talk about talking on the hill.
Yeah.
Where all these autistic people would meet in kind of an astral plane in the same place where they could talk or play or just be with each other. Even though their physical body is in one place, they're all meeting mentally in this one place together. And you're talking people from all over, not just, 3 people who live in the same state. It's California and Arizona and Georgia and New Jersey, and all these people mentally meet. And I thought that was such a cool concept that they can just leave their body essentially and go hang out with their friends in a place where they're not bound anymore to their body, where they're not like, let's go run up and down the hill, but their body can't do it, but their consciousness can.
Yeah.
I thought that was so fucking cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I can't imagine, having an autistic child that you've gone through so much hardships with, trying to take them to their doctor visits and get diagnosed, and dealing with a child that you don't understand because they don't understand, and being told that you'll never have a connection, like a real connection, like as you should with a parent with your child, because the child isn't really there. There's nothing inside. And so you've been told the whole time that this kid is handicapped, or mentally handicapped, or can't really think, doesn't have actual thoughts of their own. Come to find out that your kid actually understands, can speak multiple languages, like understands music, there's kids on there that they just put their hand on top of a book and they absorb the knowledge that's in the book.
Dude, isn't that bananas?
Yeah.
Like, do you remember the movie Meteor Man?
Yeah.
Where he could do that
Yeah.
for like 30 seconds, but these kids can do it for life.
Yeah.
Or they can tap into somebody else's mind who has read a book and absorb all of their knowledge about it. That is so fucking crazy to me.
It's amazing.
It is, and it kind of makes you jealous that they have these abilities that you kind of wish you had. But yeah, that and their seeming ability to speak to the dead was just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Where the little girl from the first story was, they said they had to leave the lights on when she would sleep, otherwise she would sit there and giggle and talk and interact with something that wasn't there. And then her brother asked her, like, well, what do you see when the lights are off? And she's like, people.
Yeah.
I see people. And then later on, one of the other kids talks about, I see my mom's mom, my grandma or whatever, and they talk. And what is that? Yeah, it looks like somebody tried to sell something. I ain't interested. Anyway.
I knew it.
Yeah, it's telepathy. It was just so crazy to me to see the vast array where it's not just the telepathy, it's being able to talk to the dead, absorbing knowledge, the speaking different languages, the high IQ, or even the ability to know or predict things that were going to happen.
Precog.
Yeah, precog. Just like in Minority Report.
Yeah. Precognition. Turns out these people, I don't want to say kids, but people are just on a different wavelength and can connect. But they also say that, most of these people with these abilities talk about how all humans actually have the capability, but we're just so stuck in this material world, physical world, that we can't connect to it because we just haven't, we don't understand. And one of the kids says, you can tap into it, you just have to feel my heart, like you have to connect to my heart. And the people around you connect to their heart, and you can, but there are tribes in the Amazon that do this also.
Yeah.
They don't speak. Uncontacted tribes, well, I guess they have been contacted because there's a little bit known about them, but they call it the ancient language. That they don't use words, they just do it telepathically, and they do have a language that they use rarely, but most of the time they communicate through telepathy. Or
I think we're all very capable of it, but we've been taught for so long and showed for so long that it's like we're almost taught it's not possible.
Yeah.
And we're only shown that it is possible through science fiction or superpowers or things like that. But I think we experience telepathy all the time. We're just not, I guess, as open to accepting that that's what it is. I mean, you have these moments where, somebody will randomly pop up in your head, and then a little bit later you get a text or a call from them or whatever. My question with that is, does one inform on the other? Is it that person was bound to text or call no matter what, but you're getting a precognition of it? Or is it you having a thought of them prompting them to reach out to you, which is kind of a weird mind boggle in and of itself. But we have those moments, or even a moment where you think of it in an old movie or something, and you just replay a scene in your head, and then a couple days later, or however long it takes, you'll see that movie pop up on TV.
Yeah.
Or if you kind of go, you're worried about somebody, and then you reach out to them, and you say like, "Hey, I had this weird feeling that maybe you're not okay," and come to find out they're not okay. I think these are all experiences of actual telepathy. It's just the most raw version of it where we can't control it.
Yeah.
It's just the biggest magnitude of wavelength actually comes to you, versus being able to tap into it and be like, I wonder what Spencer's thinking right now. Tits. I got it.
You'd be right probably 99% of the time.
Okay, so that's a mathematical probability that's different.
No, yeah, I think that a lot of people say that words have power, and speaking things into truth is a real thing. We've talked about manifestation, and but I think this is beyond that. Like these people are, so like there's one instance where in the tapes where they talk about, the lady's talking about she's watching a movie, and goes upstairs to tell her son about this movie he should watch because it's like super inspirational about this guy that has no legs and he's in the Olympics. And so he goes upstairs to tell her son to watch it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know about it."
Yeah.
Because she was watching it, he's gaining all that knowledge, and he's connected to her.
Which is kind of a weird thing.
It really is.
Not for the fact that you're mentally connecting with somebody, but when you're mentally connecting with your own mother.
Yeah.
And then let's say your mom's like, "Oh, it's your dad's birthday," and now you have to mentally connect.
Oh, no. Yeah.
That's terrible.
That is terrible. That's what Kara was saying. She's like, I would really hate it if my kids could read my mind. Totally like that. But later on in the tapes, they talk about how they would have to try to hide things from their kids, and so they would focus on something else to hide these other thoughts. Like one lady was talking about how she would have to, like if she would get like treats or snacks, she would have to think of something else while she's putting them away.
Yeah.
So he can't tap into that, like he knows exactly where the snacks are hidden.
You'd almost have to think about Dad's birthday while you're putting the Doritos away.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to know this.
You're like, "Oh God, no."
Not Dad's birthday again.
They're tuning out while you're putting fucking Doritos in the pantry.
So yeah, I mean, that would be, and they, some of the kids talk, or some of these non-speakers talk about that, like, how everything is so loud, and just wanting to be able to focus or have less noise. But you imagine that, like, you've got a bunch of people in the house and you're just hearing all their thoughts all the time.
Yeah.
It's no wonder why maybe some of these people have to wear earmuffs or have to wear, noise canceling, just because they're overstimulated all the time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a lot of the same for, and I hate to say this because it always sounds just a little hokey, but people who are very strong empaths. Where you're consistently afflicted by other people's emotions, where it is overstimulating for those people, because it's like, you're around 20 people in a day and 13 of those people are in a bad mood or they're stressed or whatever, and then 4 of those people are just in a nonchalant, and then the rest of them are on the other side of overstimulation or hyper filled with love or energy or whatever. It's just receiving so much information at the same time that it's hard to filter it out, I would think.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was interesting, one of the kids, one of the people, his name is Houston, but he talks about, his mother talks about, like, she went to some yoga class or something, and then like on the way out she was gifted like a crystal, and she thought it was just like, you know, nonsense. She didn't really believe in the power of crystals and rocks and stuff like that, and so she just kind of took it home. And as soon as her son came home from school, he was like hunting through the house to try to find, he kept saying stone, stone. Goes and finds, he knew exactly where it was, I guess, goes and gets this crystal, and she asked why he needed it, and he said because they have power, they have positive energy.
Yeah.
And so that was another thing that's like, you know, I always thought that was kind of woo-woo or hokey.
Yeah, the whole like Reiki thing.
Yeah.
I've always been on the fence about it, because I do understand that crystals and stones put off a different frequency than a lot of other things, which is weird in and of itself, because it's an inanimate object. It's just a rock. How can it put off a different frequency than everything around it? It didn't make sense. I think it's kind of in the same vein of astrology, where the possibility of it being real and functional is absolutely there, but you have so many people watering it down, you know, where you'll see...
It's like drone footage.
It's got 3 blinking lights. One is red, one is white, one is blue. That's a plane. Or it's a drone. But yeah, where, you know, people just kind of water it down to the point where you go, that's bullshit. Or they'll just perpetuate nonsense that they believe or they think or they've been taught, but it's just still nonsense. But yeah, the crystal thing, and even with the dice that were carved out of crystal, was super interesting to me, that this, you know, high functioning autistic person was like, yeah, they put off positive energy, so the more I have, the more at peace I am. And kind of the idea of like surrounding himself in his safe space with all these rocks and crystals to almost provide a barrier against everything else.
Almost like a positive energy Faraday cage for himself.
Exactly. Perfectly well said. I was just like, what? That's crazy.
It is crazy. And they go in to talk about how, you know, rocks do have, you know, everything in the world gives off a vibration of a certain hertz. And a lot of people talk about and use sound vibrations as a way of healing. And, you know, you listen to 355 hertz for, you know, a certain amount of time to heal from whatever. Different hertz for different ailments.
Different hertz for different hertz.
Yeah. Which, you know, it's, again, sounds a little hokey, but like, is it possible? Maybe. You know, we have to, and they talk about that, you know, shifting the paradigm of how we think about the physical world, because we are so limited by our bodies, perception to pick up things. You know, if you rely more on energy and stuff like that, you can transcend the physical and tap into the metaphysical. Everybody has the capability of doing it. We just don't drop that barrier. We don't understand how to.
I've always thought that we have that ability innately, but I think it does kind of go back to, you know, what you were saying with these kids have to wear earmuffs or things like that, where we have so much white noise in the background all the time, where you think about, you know, Tibetan monks who meditate for hours on end every day. Maybe they're able to tap into it because there's no outside noise. It's just, they're spending these times in these meditative states, and they're reaching more of kind of a sense of Zen, and they can tap into it because they're just not polluting the signal, you know. They're able to really get in there and just cut everything out and just focus on this one thing. And I think we all do it from time to time. It's just more of us do it when we REM sleep than anything. Yeah. Because I do believe that there is a connection between dreams and reality. You know, you could, you know, dream of a person and then the next day that person reaches out to you or whatever. It's just a weird paradigm that we just don't know how to control it.
Right. And one of the episodes they talk about a mother and son who use dreams to communicate, where he comes and talks to her in dreams, and so he can, like, in his dreams he's totally functioning, can talk and all that, and so he just comes to his mother in his dreams and talks about how, you know, tells her all the things that he wants to tell her in real life, but he can't form the words. And so, like, he comes to her in the dream and tells her that, you know, he likes cheese, but it hurts his stomach, and he likes chocolate milk or whatever. All these things that she finds out, but it was like he had to come to her in a dream and wake her up in the dream so that she would have a lucid dream and be able to communicate with him. And so she doesn't communicate any other way with him except for telepathically and in dreams. And they don't use any words, which is pretty crazy.
It is super crazy. And one thing I really enjoyed about that was the way that series branched out and talked about other things, because as I was listening to it, I was taking notes and writing down different questions and things like that. And it was hilarious because as I'm writing these notes and writing down different questions, they addressed the same questions that I had, of like pretty much all the stories about people interacting with aliens where they communicate telepathically, and they even talked about that in the show. And I was like, that's so great.
Yeah.
But it's so weird to me that the idea that such an advanced species of life form wouldn't communicate verbally anymore. So by that rationale, these autistic kids are a super advanced species of us.
Yeah. And that's like, what I kind of was kind of melting my brain, like thinking like, okay, if you look at the history of, you know, autism and how it's really kind of spiked in the last 20 years, is that really just human evolution? Like, we're transcending, and right now we're just at the forefront of realization of what these people are actually doing. Like, we see them as handicapped. In reality, maybe we're the handicapped ones because we're held back by, you know, words and language barriers and you know, they talk about how, like, in speaking people there's so much deception because you can have a conversation with somebody and their words are saying something and their actions are saying something else.
Yeah.
But when you connect telepathically, there's no lying, there's no deception, there's no and so we're kind of hindered as speakers by the speed it takes to convey a thought, first of all, and convey it truthfully and meaningfully, and obtaining that knowledge too is like you can do it instantaneously, telepathically.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you were saying earlier about saying the word Christmas, you know, and then when you elaborated on if I could communicate it telepathically, it's you get the smells and the experiences and the family time and all that, and you get the full array of emotions that go with it. I think we're all kind of bound by the same problem where you can think of something and your thoughts are just like ocean deep, but then when it comes out, it's a puddle.
Yeah.
You know, even trying to elaborate on how you feel about any one specific thing, you could say, oh, I love that movie, but you can't tell the emotion and feeling I had the first time I watched it, or every time I watch it since, or how you can use it as a comfort movie, or I use this movie to bond with this one person this one time. Like, there's so many more aspects that go into it rather than just being like, oh, that movie's so good, you know?
Right.
And you can't really convey that just by speaking. Granted, within reason, if you really know a person who, you know, maybe doesn't say, oh, I love this thing or I love something so much, versus the one time where they're like, oh my God, I love that movie. And you go, wow, that person never conveys love. So when they say they love this thing, it must be 100% for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the closest you can get, but that's only in assumption within reason of knowing that person.
Well, even to that respect, like, we talked about this in the 80s movies podcast of, like, critics or people, like, talking about movies, how some people like the movie, some people hate the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't even have to like the movie, but to be able to understand why somebody else likes it, you know, it would be... So it's like you were talking about, if somebody says, you know, I love this movie, and you're like, dude, that movie sucks. But I understand why you like it now. Yeah. You know, you're communicating telepathically that you have, you know, you watched it with your dad. It's one of your early memories. Like, yeah. You know, I can see the connection of, oh, okay, yeah, I understand why you like that movie. Yeah.
Like watching Predator, and then you're eating Pizza Hut. You can smell the Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
You remember how it tasted, and remember like where you were when you watched it and things like that. Like,
I remember having to leave the movie, you know, halfway through to go take a nasty, wicked grease dump from the Pizza Hut pizza.
Well, Pizza Hut pizza was different back then.
Yeah.
It was, you know, real.
Oh man, I think it's good. It just tears me up, dude.
I think it's good. It's just stupid expensive.
Yeah. And stupid greasy.
I think last time I ordered Pizza Hut, it was like $25 a pizza.
Really?
Well, I mean, you know, stuffed crust meat lovers, there's no deals on that.
No deal.
No deal. Fucking Pizza Hut.
Yeah, maybe we can connect with them telepathically and tell them to drop their prices a little bit. You know that Little Caesars is $6, right?
You know, Papa John's is way cheaper and equal quality. Putting that out there.
Yeah, this whole... I'm still going to go on a even deeper dive into this subject of telepathy and autism and...
Yeah, I think this is only the tip of the iceberg, because as many of the kind of mind powers that I've looked at, I've only really looked at the ones that pertain to essentially aliens or, you know, conspiracy-based things like remote viewing. I've never really put a whole lot of thought into telepathy or clairvoyance or precognition until I listened to the telepathy tapes, and I went, man, there's a whole nother layer that I just have not been looking at.
Well, it's so cool that they're not just saying these things, they're actually doing experiments to prove that it's really happening.
That's what really got me, is that, you know, you'll hear stories about like Ingo Swann and remote viewing and all these things, but you're listening to these people actually put these autistic people to the test.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do it as objectively as possible, of like, okay, the kid is sitting over there and the mom is sitting over here, and there's no way the kid could see this number or this card or whatever. It's just not possible, but it still works out with 100% accuracy. Or the one that really got me is when they had the little girl have all the popsicle sticks of different colors, and they blindfolded her, and she sorted all the sticks out, and they're asking her, like, could you see through the blindfold? And she's like, I can see everything.
Yeah.
And you go, what? How?
I can see everything. Oh, no. I'm so ashamed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hope you weren't watching me last night.
She's like, maybe Santa Claus is just autistic, dude.
Why not?
He sees you when you're sleeping.
He knows when you're awake.
He knows if you've been bad or good.
So be good For heaven's sake.
For heaven's sake.
And stop thinking about your dad's birthday.
Yeah. Maybe we just got to think of our dad's birthdays all the time so we're not getting our minds read.
Could be. Unless it's one telepathic who's into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. So, yeah, watching or listening to it, and so I watched a video. Guy's name is Jess Michaels, and he's got a podcast, and he was talking to Kai, who's the director that put this whole podcast thing together, and she's putting a movie together, a documentary about the whole, like, all these people that she's met and all the tests that they've done. But she does have footage of all these people that are on the podcast. And in that interview they were like interjecting clips of like Houston and JP, John Paul, and Maya, the little girl.
I did watch a clip of it. It was like a trailer for the movie where you actually get to see the people they're talking about. And a lot of them just look unassuming. They just look like normal people, and I don't know, maybe I was expecting something different, but yeah, I watched a clip of it, and I was watching some of the testing that they were doing with them, and when you see it, you're like, there's no way they're faking it.
And so the way they do it is, like I said, most of them use some of them use an iPad to type out what they want to say, but they try to keep it as conclusive as possible, so that you can't say that that message is being sent through the iPad. They didn't actually type it. That's not what they were thinking. So they use a little board that has basically an alphabet. I mean, they could use a Ouija board pretty much. So they would ask a question, and the speller would spell out what they were thinking or what the response was, and the accuracy was like 100% all the time. Which in a lot of studies that they've done previously with neuronormal people, people that have what we consider normal functioning brains,
dummies,
you and I type people, testing their telepathic capabilities, it's like 20% is super high. To get, like, if you hold up a card and I can just see the back of it and you're looking at a picture on the card, I can name what it is. Like, I'll be right probably 20% of the time. Super high functioning people, 35% of the time they're right, which is, 3 times out of 10, maybe 4.
You just reminded me of the scene from Ghostbusters. Where he had the woman and the dude locked into the...
He kept shocking the guy.
Then he holds up the card, and you could see from the perspective of Venkman, and the guy's like a couple of wavy lines, and then he zaps him anyway. But
yeah, I mean, but these people are doing it 100% with 100% accuracy. Naming 4, 5, 6 digit numbers that are being generated on an iPad, like just a random number. And they come up, and then before it even comes up, they don't even have time to actually read the number. They're already like spelling it out, like what number it is. Pretty crazy.
Have you ever done this where you have a deck of cards and you'll draw one and then have somebody try to guess what it is? So I've done this a lot, and the amount of accuracy is extremely low. And it's most of the time I find that people guess really close, but not quite. But when they are right, they don't have like the number in the suit correct, but they'll have like maybe the number and the color, or just the number, or just the color, which probability you have a 25% chance of getting the color right. And then, out of, what is it, 30,
52?
13 different
Numbers.
potential numbers that you could get. You know, you have a 1 in 13 chance of getting that right. But yeah, or sorry, it's a 50-50 on the color. It's a 25% chance on the suit, and then a 1 in 13 out of the number. But you'll find that people get really close just randomly.
Well, I used to play a drinking game, high or low.
Oh, yeah.
You get super fucked up off of that because you're wrong at least 50% of the time.
And then you get really hammered, and then you're suddenly right all the time.
Yeah. Maybe your inhibitions are gone.
It's your state of consciousness has changed. You're not thinking about all the other stuff that goes with everything else.
Yeah, your wavelength is super connected to those cards because I don't want to fucking puke, dude. That's low.
It's true. Because you're like, I have to get this right. I can't do another shot.
Yeah.
We've already killed 4 bottles. I can't do it. My liver is hating. Yeah, it was so crazy just listening to it. And I think the worst part that I had with that was the amount of support that science doesn't give on that, where you have a lot of researchers and scientists and doctors, therapists and such aren't supporting, you know, the letterboards, or they're not supporting the typing or whatever, because they'll say, you know, somebody shouldn't be physically touching them because you can maladjust what they're saying based on what information you're giving them.
Yeah.
But then you hear some of them talk about they just need to feel in a positive space in terms of, I need to know where my hand is, so somebody holds your arm or your hand. They're not over here like Morse code tapping on your wrist of what to type. It's just showing you that your physical body is here, and that's how you can control it within this designated space.
Yeah.
Because I'm here supporting you.
Yeah. And they talk about that. That's how they teach the kids how to use the spelling boards, because like we've mentioned before, a lot of the kids up to a certain point aren't even aware that they have a body. They're not aware of their physical body, so they don't know how to control, you know, to point to something. Gross motor skills aren't developed.
No.
You know, fine motor skills like talking is almost absurd to them because they just don't have that mental puppetry of controlling a meat suit that we as neurotypical people think about and do on a daily basis. They just don't connect with that. So having somebody there to teach them, touch their arm, and be like, okay, my arm is right here, so I know how to point straight to that. I'm looking at the letter or the number, so I can point to it, you know. Eventually most of the spellers get to the point where they don't need that physical touch anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of times it starts with a hand on the wrist, moves to the shoulder, maybe touching the head. One lady was saying how she would just hold one strand of hair on the person's head so that they kind of knew, okay, I'm here in this body. Let me control these arms to go over here and point to this letterboard to spell out what I'm thinking.
And a lot of them say that it's so exhausting to do it because of how much effort they have to exert to actually be able to point or type or, you know, however it is that they communicate. Because again, they're just not used to the corporeal form. Mm-hmm. They're used to the telepathy, and they're used to being a little bit more ethereal.
You know, traveling outside of the meat suit.
Which is so fucking cool.
Yeah. Especially they're talking about like communicating with people that they know that are across states, across the country. They're meeting at this ethereal plane, the hill, and meeting people and having friends and
and being able to be completely boundless too. Right. You know, where if they want to run up a hill, they can run up a hill. It's not like their body is fighting them. You know, I imagine. For them, it's similar to if you're used to driving an automatic car and then you're forced to drive a manual. It's going to be very herky-jerky because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's just like my mind's interpretation of it. Where you're, okay, maybe, no, shit, you know.
Well, yeah, you even look at like toddlers as opposed to, adults who have been puppeting this body for 20, 30 years. They're kind of, they can, I won't say mastered it, but like more comfortable with using their arms and limbs. And you look at a baby who's stumbling around trying to figure it out still.
Fuck, I just thought they were drunk this whole time. Fuck.
What are you putting in those bottles, dude? Some of that shit.
Well, that's why I've always kind of believed that extremely young children, babies and toddlers, are much more connected to, I guess the easy way to say is a little bit more into the paranormal realm, because they're not taught anything different. They don't understand anything. So everything is just a big open book for them. Mm-hmm. And it could be the same for telepathy, and I'd like to, dive deeper into see if maybe these autistic people are able to communicate with babies or young toddlers, because they don't have a developed brain. They're not like rationalized to go, telepathy is not real, or you can't communicate with your mind.
They don't have the same filters that we've put on.
Exactly.
That society has kind of led us to put on ourselves. We've talked about that in some of the other World type episodes that we've done, in the theory that there's these boundaries that we've set for ourselves, that these things don't exist, so they're not real. So that we've just put up these filters that we, that's not important, so I don't have to pay attention to that. These spirits, I'm not supposed to see these, so they're not really there.
Or I tend to think that we kind of rationalize into reality. When you kind of have these moments where, you're in a dark room and you see a shape in the room that you're in, and you go, fuck, that looks like a vampire or whatever. And then you rationalize and go, no, that's a chair, and I hung my coat there and the hood's sticking up a little bit, and that's why it looks that way. What if it really was what you thought it was, but you were able to, in a way, manipulate reality into being this filtered version of what you think it should be?
Yeah. Just
to not scare yourself, you know.
And I know that in one of the episodes she was talking about how everything is just a thought. So like everything that you can see was just a thought that somebody thought of and then made into an actual object. So yeah, I mean, maybe if you saw that dark shadow in your room and then you rationalized it into being a vampire, it might have been a vampire for real.
It could have been. I mean, going back to kind of what I was saying earlier of things that they talked about that I kind of was theorizing on while I was listening to it, and it ties right into that, was simulation theory. Now, I'm not a proponent of simulation theory. It's very interesting and very cool, and I want to really dive deep into it, but I don't have anything that points me into saying that's real. But the way they talk about it in the show was like, instead of it being kind of a Matrix type situation where we're all just jacked into a big, modem or whatever, think about it in terms of consciousness as kind of a big stream. And that's the simulation, is your consciousness projecting into reality and how we're all connected within that big stream. And I thought, that's so cool, because if consciousness can manipulate reality, then talking about seeing a vampire in a corner in a dark room, that could potentially be real because you can think it into reality. Mm-hmm. It's just such a mind-bending concept that I'm still battling with myself on how to articulate it, but I'm fascinated by it. Yeah, for sure. And that's the whole thing that I was really enamored with, was does this open up that the possibility of information is just everywhere, you just have to tap into it. All the information that you ever want to know is there, you just have to realize or figure out how to tap into it. There's one girl who's 7 or 8 years old, maybe she was 10, and they were testing her on all these different things. She's showing them that she can speak Hebrew, and
she understands all these ancient languages, and they show her a picture of a hieroglyph, like an Egyptian hieroglyph. The doctors don't even know what it is. They just show it to her, and she tells them what the symbol is, and they have to look it up, and they're, oh shit, she was right.
Yeah.
How does she know that? She says the gods told her, or the god told her, which is another thing that, like, they talk about it in the thing, is in that series, is that these people are talking with angels and entities that, you know, we as physical minded people don't have a concept of. I mean, a lot of people have faith, or, you know, their religion that will explain these things as angels or demons or spirits or whatever. But they are talking about how there are all these things are around us all the time, and they're getting information from these beings, and we can all tap into it. We just have to find out how.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the things I was almost struggling with, was there was kind of a sense of dogma behind it, where a lot of these kids talk about God a lot. And I don't personally believe in God, but after hearing kind of like this whole genesis of this story of these kids who are born different and can do all these things, and then later on when they were, you know, are more mature and more mentally, I guess, what's the word? I don't want to say capable. They've always been capable, but more able to communicate. They talk more about God, and it kind of left me questioning my own belief about that sort of thing, but it also left me questioning, what exactly do they mean by God?
Right.
Is it, you know, the typical, the big dude with a beard on a cloud, or is it talking about the universe, or like one specific God? It definitely opened more questions than it did to shut things down. But it also didn't really matter in certain moments, like when they talk about going to JP's funeral and all the different autistic people that are there. Like, you should have seen how many angels were there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a beautiful and profound moment, that all of these people could see the same angels all in the same place. And it really just kind of makes you go, like, you know, what really is out there? What is it that they're actually seeing? Is it, you know, the classic kind of Christian version of an angel, or is it a being of pure energy? Like, what are they seeing? And I'm so just enamored with the idea of knowing that answer.
Yeah. For me too, it was the realization of that they're having to use words for us dummies to understand what they're trying to communicate. So using a word like God is something that we'll understand, but to them it's just a word that they know that we can understand. So, you know,
solid fucking point.
I don't think that it has to be defined as one thing or another. Like, they asked, one of the kids would reference God and gods at the same time, and so they said, okay, well, what do you mean by God or gods? Is it one God or multiple gods, or one God with multiple names? And they said multiple names, just because there's so many different terms for that people understand that refer to God.
Yeah.
So for me, is more of them just using vernacular that we would understand, and not having to define it with, you know, semantics.
That's really profound logic, and I didn't think about it in that aspect. Wow, that really kind of puts it in a whole different perspective for me. I really just thought about it as I really need to reassess my own perspective on God, or on the idea of an omnipotent being, or just a higher level being than what we are. It was just another thing that opened up my mind to, I don't have all the answers, and I need to actually look deeper within myself to understand it. And I was actually really grateful for that, because it was so interesting to me that I could look at these people who have all these gifts and go, that's amazing. I wish I could do those sorts of things. And then they have a much more profound sense of what's really important when they talk about, in the end, all there is love. When you're gone from this plane, it's just love. And, you know, especially at the time listening to it, I was kind of in a heightened emotional state, or, you know, I was feeling a little bitter about some things, and maybe just my day was going bad, and I went, you know, maybe I should just quit being a little bitch.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, it's all love. Like, maybe that's the difference of heaven and hell. Like, if you spend your whole life in a negative space and you're just see the negative in everything, and you're just kind of charge your entire being of just, you know, everything sucks, and, you know, when you pass on to that next plane, why would you change? Like,
yeah,
you're just going to be perpetually in that state of misery. And
100%. And I've just learned to accept within myself that when you get into a negative state, or you feel downtrodden or whatever, as long as you can kind of hold on to the concept that this too shall pass, and you're not always going to feel this way, or you're not always going to suffer through the same problem or whatever, like, hold on to that concept and just keep looking forward. It's going to pass, and you'll feel better. And I think more people need to grasp onto that, because we all know a few people who are just perpetually negative and bitter and angry, and they're going to carry that their whole life. And then that also means they're going to carry it to the next life and to the next life, until they can learn that you don't have to be that way.
right.
You're not gaining anything by it, and you're not giving anything by it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, dude, it's 2025, man. It's a new year. It could be a new you.
I think every year should be a new year.
Yeah. Smile.
Smile.
Look at the birds.
That's it. It's funny you mention that. I know this is totally off topic, but do you ever see those stupid fucking people on, like, TikTok and Instagram or whatever, that they're all into astrology and fortune telling and all that stuff? And I came across one the other day, and I was like, I scrolled, and I had to set my phone down and do something, but I was still listening to it. And it was this lady talking about, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, Hecate or Hecate or whatever, this goddess. And it was talking about when she reaches out to you, she's going to reach out through birds. And you're going to see all these different birds, and they all have different meanings, and you need to pay attention, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, you know, you always kind of put that stuff in the back of your mind going, it's hoo-hoo, you know? And so since then, I've seen nothing but fucking birds. I've seen ravens everywhere. In fact, after I dropped off the kid at school, and I came back and I got a shower, and before you got here, I ran to the store, and when I came back, there's like 20 pigeons in the driveway, and I had to pull in slow so they would fuck off. And then I realized there's like a flamingo statue in the front yard now that my mom put out there, and some other shit. And one of them that they talked about in that video was like, you're going to see a hawk. And it was just last week, I was driving down the road, and I saw a hawk perched up on the fence. And I was like, it's too fucking weird.
Yeah.
You know, it just adds up too much. And I'm not trying to read the tea leaves or, you know, say something is abound or whatever. It's just one of those weird coincidences in life that may not be a coincidence, but it might be. Is it because I watched that video that now I'm more observant of birds? Or were the birds actually going to be there, and that was a precipitation to pay more attention, you know?
That's interesting, because just the other day I walked out of my house, and I didn't even listen to the birds thing, but I saw a hawk swoop down and get a pigeon, and was trying to eat this pigeon right in my front yard as I walked outside.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. This is just like a week ago.
Yeah, it was just like a week ago I listened to that TikTok thing and I've nonstop seen birds.
Maybe we're just on the same loop of the simulation, just in
Maybe
different...
we're telepathically linked.
Maybe.
What am I thinking about?
Tits.
God. Legit.
Yeah.
Well, now that we got that out of the way, we got to see if manifestation is real. Watch this.
Got him.
All right, that answers everything. It's all real, all of it.
Turn the Matrix off. Let's play a new game.
Maybe a zombie game this time.
Ooh. As terrifying as zombies would be, oh man, Until You Die would be super fun, dude.
For that 5 minutes, it would be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one of the other things that I found extremely interesting, because obviously these kids have these great powers and these abilities, and I was like, I want that, you know. But then you come to find out other people have also gained these same abilities or similar to. And in one of the episodes they talk about, and I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she was in the military and there was an explosion and it messed her up real bad. She had a piece of debris lodged in her brain. They had to take that out. She lost her voice. But since then, she's been able to communicate with people who have passed on. And she talked about her great uncle was a very renowned detective, and her great uncle would communicate with her in her mind, and anytime somebody was about to die, he would open up his pocket watch and that person would have 24 hours to live. Did you remember that?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, it was one of the towards the end episodes. But one of the stories was I think she was at the airport, and she remembered seeing this guy in a leather jacket, and he had an afro and stuff, and the guy was kind of nudging her like, hey, do me a favor, go up to that guy over there and take him a 7-Up and say, make 7-Up yours. And she was like, is this guy even like real? Is he even here? Am I imagining this? And so she's like, okay. So she goes and buys a 7-Up, takes it to the guy, gives it to him, and she says, hey, so this man over here in a leather jacket wanted me to give you this and say, make 7-Up yours. And the guy she gave it to just immediately broke down and started crying. And so she's like, oh, you know, I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings or whatever. And he explained, like, that was my best friend that died several years ago. And that was a joke we would tell each other. We'd give each other a 7-Up and say, make 7-Up yours. Mm. And what was really profound about it was, he's like, I've been really depressed and I've been thinking about my friend, and literally today after work I was going to go home and end my life. Wow. And that saved me. And I was just like, holy shit, blown away by this. But the gift had developed so much that she ended up being able to contact her passed away great uncle, who again was this great police detective, and that he would help kind of ferry people over, but would also give her details on how to find these people to give like some sense of closure. So when JP John Paul had passed away, she remembered seeing her uncle with him, and he had his watch out, but it wasn't open. And this went on for about a week, and then she died, or he died, but she was in contact with Kai, the creator of this whole series, and she was trying to call Kai, and then Kai finally called her back later and was like, oh, I'm sorry, my friend's child just died. And she's like, was he a big guy, like a very large man, you know, 6 foot plus? And she's like, how did you know that? And she's like, I saw him, I talked to him, you know. And she's telling her, I can see him now, you know, he's in heaven, and now he's 10 feet tall, and now he's kind of like the leader of the special kids who go to heaven, and he's in, he leads them on the way and he helps them, and they're all like clamoring for his high fives, and Kaya's like, that's amazing because I never even told you about him, and this whole like weird connection just played out on its own, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, so I caught the tail end of that story because I was taking a shower. But yeah, amazing. Kind of getting the backstory of like the uncle and stuff. I kind of wonder if the uncle, being a super great detective, was kind of tapped in and maybe didn't know that he had these like precog type.
Well, he was passed away.
Yeah. But while he was living, while he was a detective.
I almost kind of wonder, if JP took on this mentorship role in heaven for all these autistic kids who passed away, if maybe the uncle, who was this great detective, whose goal was truth and justice and helping families get closure, maybe that's the role that he took on when he went to heaven, was the same that he had in life, because he made that his life's goal, to help shepherd people into solving crimes and things like that. Like, so maybe when we go to heaven, we're just going to do podcasts. Probably.
Either way, the whole detective with the pocket watch and precog abilities is another screenplay that we need to write, I guess.
I think so.
Print it. Put it out there.
It's on the page.
I don't know why the networks aren't just clamoring for the idea, guys.
I think we need to get past like 10 downloads per episode.
Yeah.
For, people to listen.
Let's make it 11 and we're on our way.
Yeah, maybe let's break triple digits.
Numbers.
Just numbers, that's all it is.
I'm not a numbers guy, I'm an idea guy.
Yeah. I'm not a numbers guy, I'm a drone on guy. I'll just keep talking. It's a Genesis thing. So I create a Genesis and you make it into an idea.
Okay.
So I'm Inception, but you're the idea.
Now we just need like a salesperson, a pitch guy.
We do need a pitch guy.
A pitch man.
Maybe we ought to actually write these things out first.
Well, that's how good we are at it. It's just like idea.
Yeah, it's on the money.
I can't take time out of making ideas to finalize them.
Yeah, you have a team full of mediocre writers.
Yeah.
If we just give them ideas, they can form it into something.
I'm stuck here. Do this. I got an idea for that.
Yeah.
Just like the E.T. thing. Boom.
Boom.
E.T. 2.
Or the 3D printed Predator. We're on it.
Yeah, so my biggest thing is, how do we tap in?
Psychedelics.
Psychedelics.
How does Joe Rogan say it? You're 2 hits away from a totally different world. I think it's a way to tap in.
I mean, you talk to anybody that's done, well, not anybody, but like for the most part, like if you've done a psychedelic substance and haven't walked away with a different understanding of yourself and the world around you,
absolutely,
you probably haven't done enough.
Or you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
I mean, if somebody was to ask me how to prepare for it, the very first thing I would say is, you can't think about it as, I'm getting high.
Partying.
Yeah, it's not a party thing. This is a spiritual journey that you're about to go on. And that's like the number one factor that you have to put into place before you even consider doing it. It's not like, having a glass of whiskey or smoking a joint. It's not even close. This is something profound.
Yeah.
It's going to change you, but you have to decide early on if it's going to change you for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to lean towards the dark side.
You have to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, because there's always like a fine line of, I mean, in my experience, there's always like walking that line, and then you get to something that's super scary, and you can either go one way or go the other way to delve down into the hole, or like turn into, you know, oh, look at this, it's happy. I think that the more revealing aspects are going into that scarier place and finding out why it's scary.
yeah, so my theory is there's no such thing as a bad trip. They're all trips you learn from.
Yeah.
And in my experience, there's been times I've tried to go into the darker aspect, or I've tried to take a turn into the scary stuff, but I get steered away, not because I'm steering myself, but because something else is.
Yeah, it could be just like things that you're not ready for.
That's 100% what I think it is if you believe that there is a spirit within psychedelics, which a lot of people believe, it's pointing you in the direction you need to go, not where you want to go. And I recall one specific time trying to kind of delve into the darker aspect of it, and that spirit guiding me saying, you're not ready for this yet. It's not your time to understand this yet. And I was like, okay, show me where to go.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that way. All right, cool. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. But I do think, you know, like we talked about with Dr. Travis Taylor saying, you know, your higher level brain function shut off under psychedelics, and that's why you're able to delve into something else, because you're not thinking about all the kind of tertiary things, you know. You're not looking at the clock or hearing this outside noise or thinking about this or what you're going to make for dinner. It's all that is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being able to eliminate all that white noise in your mind and just be able to be within the moment, you could probably tap in.
Yeah, I'm surprised I'm not like tapped in already, because I only have thoughts as they come. I haven't even thought, oh shit, I do have to make dinner tonight. And just when you said that, I was like, oh yeah.
I don't know, dude. My mind goes like a million miles an hour. Like I could hear a car alarm going off, and I looked at the timer on that, and I was like looking to make sure those are still recording and listening to what you're saying and still thinking about my next thought, and then another thought that comes in behind that. And it's just like everything is a lot of noise, and I just got really good at compartmentalizing it.
Yeah, that's some high level brain fun. I was just like watching your lips move as you were talking. I am that dumb, dude.
Oh, I think it's the opposite. I think it's just more focus.
It's something that I've like had to work on, because I would get lost when people are talking, like especially like having a conversation with somebody, and I would find myself just like thinking about something else, and then like it comes my turn to talk back to them, and I'm just like, what? Oh shit, yeah, we're talking, aren't we?
My name is Jeff.
Yeah, I still have that problem, but
I have that problem when whoever's talking is fucking boring.
Yeah. Tell me about something other than your car.
Oh, I don't like talking about other people's vehicles.
Yeah. And I don't know.
Within reason. I mean, like when somebody gets a new vehicle and they're kind of like boasting about it, like, oh, they're proud of it. That's great. I'm going to be here for you in this moment. But 1 month from today, I don't want to hear another fucking word about it.
It's over. We're done. Let me take a ride in it. I'll get all the deets.
Yeah. Or next time you're riding in it, you go, oh, this is really nice. Cool. We're done with that.
Yeah.
You got validation. Move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we gotta, as a society, accept that these things are really happening. And I don't know, you see it now. Maybe it's just because it's something that I look into more, but it seems like a lot more people are kind of opening up to the realization of these altered conscious states and being able to tap into these things as a reality, as opposed to the belief system of like that's all just nonsense, everything is hard data.
The kind of materialistic world point of view, I couldn't buy into it anyway, because it's just like, for me, I could never just accept that, I was born, I'm supposed to work, pay bills, and then I'll fucking die. Cool. That's it? No. I could never just accept that.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
I want to go on adventures.
I've always just had to just embrace the fact that I believe in a lot more things that are tertiary to reality than what we know, because I can't accept that that's all that I'm made for. Mm-hmm. I can't accept that that's all you're made for. With all these people with brilliant minds and beautiful souls, like that's their job, is just to work a meaningless job and pay bills. I can't buy it.
Yeah. We
have to be capable of so much more.
And we are. It's just waking up and opening up your mind and doing it. Like,
I agree. I
tap in, dude.
Tap in, and I think it requires sacrifice to a degree, because I know for myself, and I've talked about this before, of just sitting in the dark in the silence. If you can do that for 10 minutes, you can realize that your mind doesn't quite unravel. It does the opposite. It kind of tightens up and contracts to a point where you're not, again, you're cutting out all that higher level brain function shit that you're not using at the moment, where you're almost meditative, Mm-hmm. Things like that, or trying the exercises like the card game or the high and low, to maybe put your telepathic abilities to test and see if there's something else there.
Well, yeah, I would think that it's probably like an exercise. You have to kind of build up that muscle of tapping into that whatever little stream that we have to tap into, trying to push those boundaries and push yourself. Absolutely. Through sacrificing time to time and energy to put into those things. I mean, I think it would probably be super rewardful just for like a mental state. It really is. I mean, just in terms of being able to disconnect with social media, because I think for many people, myself included, is just how much time you waste on there. Not to say it's all useless. There's fruitful things, there's entertainment and what have you. But just being able to tune everything out, and like, I'm not going to watch TV, I'm not going to play on my phone, I'm not going to play a video game or anything like that. I'm just going to sit with myself in the quiet and just feel my feelings and think my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And I think we're all kind of so disconnected from ourselves that we all need to be able to do that more often. Yeah, totally agree. So, final thought, telepathy, 100% real? 100% real. I do believe. Me too. I'm in, dude. I'm in. I'm all in. I'm all up in your mind right now. Oh, yeah, get in my mind. You could just imagine the scene from Deadpool and Wolverine. Have you watched it? With the fingers. Man, I feel like Stitch right now, dude. No, I haven't seen it. Oh, you still haven't seen it? I haven't seen it. It's on Disney Plus. I think we got rid of Disney Plus. Damn. I'll rent it and watch it tonight. I'll give you the password to my Movies Anywhere account. It's on there. Don't say that on TV. Don't broadcast that live. No, I'm totally not gonna. That would be illegal. What if I telepathize it to you? What if I just read your mind? Got it. Oh shit! Go ahead. Okay. Sweet. I didn't give it to him.
you saw it. But yeah, I'm super enthralled, and I think there's a lot more to come.
Oh yeah.
I think this almost has to be a series.
Yeah.
Because you have telepathy, clairvoyance, astral projection, out-of-body experiences, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot we got to talk about.
I mean, we did one on near-death experiences, but there's so much in that, like, in that whole vein, that whole world.
I think there's more to talk about with that, too, because those things happen regularly. And even with the gal who was in that series, she did die on the table and then came back. She was dead for 3 minutes. And then when she came back, she had these abilities. So I think there's a lot more in that subject to talk about, not just, the science or things seen or experienced there, but what happens after? How do you live after?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ever-evolving thought process of consciousness. Like, even science, like, you go back 200 years and look at the things that they believed, and you're like, you guys are so dumb, dude.
Dummies.
You guys, so dumb.
Well, the suppression of science for a long time, I think, has just stalled us as a species for a long time.
Yeah.
Because you had the Dark Ages where no science was allowed. It was very basic, very rudimentary stuff where, if you had a common cold, you'd wipe your ass with a badger and you'll be fine. Whatever stupid fucking thing they came up with.
Just gotta find a badger, dude.
If you swallow a spoonful of gunpowder and wipe your ass with a badger, you'll be cured.
True. It's true.
It's true. I was there. All right. With that said, let's close it off. I'm glad we talked about this because I was hooked.
Oh yeah, still am, dude.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm definitely gonna go home and watch some more videos on it.
We may have to do a part 2 like really soon.
Yeah.
Only we'll add the videos and the links.
Videos are in the links. Click the link. Subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.